The luxurious Willson family villa was brightly lit. Tonight was the grand birthday banquet of the 70-year-old old Mrs. Willson, the head of the Willson family. The villa was filled with laughter, expensive perfume, and the sound of clinking glasses. The entire Willson family had gathered, grandchildren, granddaughters, and even grandsons-in-law, all eager to present their gifts and win favor. One by one, they stepped forward. "Grandma," a young man said respectfully, "I heard that you love tea. This century-old Pu'er tea brick is worth 500,000. Please accept it as my birthday gift." Another person quickly followed. "Grandma, I heard that you believe in Buddha. This jade Buddha is carved from Hetian jade and is worth 700,000. Old Mrs. Willson looked at the pile of expensive gifts with satisfaction. Her lips curled into a pleased smile and her eyes gleamed with pride. The whole family was delighted. Compliments and flattery filled the air like sweet wine. However, at that moment, an unexpected voice broke the harmony. "Grandma!" Everyone turned. The one speaking was Charlie Wade, old Mrs. Willson's eldest grandson-in-law. His tone was calm, but his expression carried a hidden urgency. "Grandma, can you lend me 1 million? The entire hall instantly fell silent. Charlie continued, "Aunt Lena from the orphanage has uremia. She needs money for treatment." Shock spread across the faces of the Willson family members. Many stared at Charlie as if they had heard something unbelievable. This live-in son-in-law was too bold. Tonight was old Mrs. Willson's birthday banquet. Not only had Charlie failed to prepare any gift, but he even dared to ask for 1 million in front of everyone. 3 years ago, old Mr. Willson, before passing away, had somehow brought Charlie into the family. Nobody knew where Charlie came from. He had been penniless, dressed like a beggar, and carried nothing but an old backpack. Yet old Mr. Willson had insisted that Charlie marry his eldest granddaughter, Claire Willson. After the marriage, old Mr. Willson passed away. Since then, the Willson family had tried their best to drive Charlie away. They insulted him, humiliated him, and treated him like dirt. But Charlie remained indifferent. He endured everything in silence and continued living as the unwanted live-in son-in-law. Today, however, he had no choice. Aunt Lena, the woman who had raised him in the orphanage, was suffering from uremia. Dialysis and kidney transplantation required at least 1 million. Charlie had tried everything he could, but he could not gather such a huge amount of money. So he took a gamble. He believed that today, on old Mrs. Willson's birthday, she might be in a good mood. Perhaps she would show mercy. But he was wrong. Old Mrs. Willson's smile vanished instantly. Her face darkened like a stormy sky. With a furious expression, she slammed the teacup in her hand onto the floor. Crash! The porcelain shattered into pieces. "You bastard!" she shouted angrily. "Are you here to celebrate my birthday, or are you here to borrow money?" Claire Willson, Charlie's wife, quickly stepped forward. "Grandma, Charlie doesn't mean any harm," she said nervously. "He's just desperate. Please don't be angry." Claire then tried to pull Charlie aside, hoping to end the embarrassment. But before she could, her cousin Wendy sneered loudly. "Sister, look at what kind of trash you married," Wendy mocked. "Gerald and I are only engaged, not even married yet, and he already gifted Grandma a Hetian jade Buddha, but your husband, he brought nothing, and he still has the shameless face to ask Grandma for money." The moment Wendy finished speaking, her fiancé Gerald also stepped forward, his face full of arrogance. "That's right," Gerald said coldly. "Brother Charlie, we are both grandsons-in-law of the Willson family, but you, as the eldest grandson-in-law, are truly a failure." Gerald was the young master of a well-known family in Orphanage Hill. Compared to the Willson family, the Jones family was far more powerful and wealthy. In Gerald's eyes, Wendy was not even worthy of standing beside Claire. Claire was known as the goddess of Orphanage Hill, beautiful, intelligent, and elegant. Yet she had married this useless man, Charlie Wade. It made Gerald feel both jealous and annoyed. Many other Willson family members joined the insults. This trash should be kicked out of the Willson family. Yes, he has completely ruined the Willson family's reputation. I bet he's lying about borrowing money. He just wants to sabotage Grandma's banquet. Charlie clenched his fists. His knuckles turned white. He could endure humiliation, but he could not tolerate hearing Aunt Lena's suffering being treated like a joke. If it were not for the medical expenses, he would have left this place long ago. Still remembering his father's teachings, Charlie forced himself to stay calm. He swallowed his anger and spoke respectfully. Grandma, saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Please be merciful. A cold snort echoed. You're trying to play tricks again, someone said mockingly. It was Harold Willson, Wendy's brother. Harold had always been jealous of Claire. Since he couldn't attack Claire directly, he always took every opportunity to insult Charlie. Charlie Wade, Harold sneered, don't try to act noble. If you want to save someone, go find a way yourself. Don't expect Grandma to pay for it. Who do you think you are? Claire looked embarrassed and anxious. She turned to old Mrs. Willson again. Grandma, she pleaded softly, Charlie lost his parents when he was only 8. Aunt Lena raised him. He just wants to repay her kindness. Please help him. Old Mrs. Wilson's face remained cold. You want me to help him? She asked sharply. Then she leaned back and said with a cruel smile, Fine, I will help him, but only under one condition. The entire room fell silent again. Old Mrs. Willson pointed at Claire. Divorce him, she said, then marry Wendell Jones. If you do that, I will immediately give him 1 million. Claire's face turned pale. Wendell Jones. The Jones family was a powerful upper-class family in Orris Hill. Wendell had been pursuing Claire for a long time, and old Mrs. Willson desperately wanted to build a connection with the Jones family. At that moment, the housekeeper suddenly rushed into the hall, shouting excitedly, Madam, Mr. Jones has sent someone with a birthday gift. Everyone turned. The housekeeper continued loudly, It is a carved jade amulet from King Jade. It is worth 3 million. Old Mrs. Wilson's eyes lit up with excitement. Bring it quickly, let me see it. The housekeeper immediately handed over the jade amulet. The moment the amulet appeared, the entire hall gasped. The jade was emerald green, crystal clear, and flawless. It looked like the finest piece of jade anyone had ever seen. Even Gerald, who had gifted the Hetian jade Buddha, felt embarrassed. Compared to this jade amulet, his gift looked cheap. Old Mrs. Willson held the jade amulet in her hands lovingly, smiling brightly. Oh, Mr. Jones is truly thoughtful, she said with joy. If only he could become my grandson-in-law, I could die happily. Then she looked at Claire again. Claire, she asked, have you thought about my offer? Claire clenched her fists and shook her head firmly. Grandma, she said, I will not divorce Charlie. Old Mrs. Wilson's smile vanished instantly. Her face turned ugly with anger. Don't be shameless, she screamed. You insist on holding onto this useless trash, then get out of my sight. She pointed at Charlie furiously. My birthday banquet is not a place for him. He is not allowed to stay here. Charlie's heart sank. At that moment, he felt completely disappointed. He no longer had the strength to argue. He turned to Claire. Claire, I'll go to the hospital to see Aunt Lena, he said quietly. Claire quickly said, then I'll come with you. Old Mrs. Wilson's anger exploded again. If you leave too, she shouted, then don't call yourself my granddaughter anymore. Take your parents and get out of the Willson family with this waste. Claire froze. She never expected such cruel words. Charlie immediately said, Claire, stay, don't worry about me. Before Claire could respond, Charlie turned around and walked out of the villa. Behind him, Harold laughed loudly. "Oh, my dear brother-in-law," Harold mocked. "You're leaving hungry again. Are you going to beg on the streets for dinner?" He then took out a coin and threw it at Charlie's feet. Clink! The entire Willson family burst into laughter. Charlie clenched his teeth, forcing himself not to turn around. Without looking back, he left the Willson family villa. When Charlie arrived at the hospital, he immediately rushed to the payment counter. He wanted to speak with the hospital staff and ask for more time. However, the nurse gave him shocking news. "Aunt Lena was transferred overnight," she said. "She has been moved to the best hospital in Eastcliff." Charlie's eyes widened in disbelief. "Transferred? Why?" he asked urgently. "How much does it cost? I'll find a way." The nurse replied calmly, "A total of 3 million is required. 1 million has already been paid. There is still a gap of 2 million. It must be paid within 1 week." Charlie was stunned. 1 million has been paid, he repeated. "Who paid it?" The nurse shook her head. "I don't know." Charlie stood frozen in place, his mind spinning. Who could possibly help him? Just as he was about to leave and investigate, he suddenly felt a presence behind him. He turned around. A man in a black suit stood there. His hair was grey, and he looked around 50 years old. His posture was straight, and his aura carried dignity. The moment their eyes met, the man bowed respectfully. "Young master," the man said with a trembling voice, "you have suffered for so many years." Charlie frowned. His expression became cold. "Are you Stephen Thompson?" he asked. The man's eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Wade, you still remember me?" Charlie's face darkened. "Of course I remember," he said slowly. "I remember all of you. Back then, you forced my parents to take me out of Eastcliff. We escaped all the way, and during that time, my parents died unexpectedly. I became an orphan." His voice grew colder. "So tell me, why are you looking for me now?" Stephen Thompson's expression was filled with pain. "Young master," he said softly, "when your father passed away, old Master Wade was heartbroken. He has been searching for you for years. Now that we finally found you, he wants you to return with me." Charlie's eyes were filled with hatred. "You can go," he said. "I will never see him again in my life." Stephen Thompson sighed. "Young master, do you still blame Master Wade?" "Of course," Charlie replied firmly. "I will never forgive him." Stephen Thompson lowered his head. "Before I came," he said, "Master Wade said you might not forgive him." "That means he has some self-awareness," Charlie said coldly. Stephen Thompson nodded. "Master Wade knows you have suffered. He wants to compensate you. If you don't want to return to Eastcliff, he will buy the largest company in Orus Hill and give it to you." Then he slowly pulled out a card and handed it to Charlie. "And he asked me to give you this card. The password is your birthday." Charlie stared at the card. It was a premium Citibank black card. Stephen Thompson continued respectfully, "Mr. Wade, there are only 5 such cards in the entire country." Charlie shook his head. "Take it away," he said. "I don't want it." Stephen Thompson's face became anxious. "Young master, for your savior, you still need 2 million. If you fail to pay, her life will be in danger." Charlie narrowed his eyes. "You deliberately planned this?" he asked. Stephen Thompson quickly shook his head. "I wouldn't dare," he said, "but if you accept this card, you will have more than enough to pay." Charlie's voice became heavy. "How much money is inside?" Stephen Thompson answered honestly. "Master Wade said this is only a small amount of pocket money, not much." He paused. "A total of 10 billion. Charlie's breathing stopped. 10 billion. 10 billion, Charlie was stunned. He knew that his grandfather's family was wealthy, but back then he had been too young to understand money. He only knew that the Wade family was one of the most powerful families in Eastcliff and in the entire country, but he had never known exactly how much wealth they possessed. Now he finally understood. 10 billion was considered pocket money. If that was the case, then the total fortune of the Wade family was probably worth more than 1 trillion. To be honest, Charlie was deeply shaken, but when he thought of his parents' deaths, he couldn't help blaming his grandfather. He could not forgive him. Stephen Thompson noticed his inner conflict and quickly said, "Young master, you are the heir of the Wade family. You deserve this money, and strictly speaking, it belongs to your father." The master said that if you are willing to return, you will inherit the family's trillions in assets. If you do not wish to go back, this money will be given to you as living expenses. Oh, and one more thing. Orris Hill's largest enterprise, the Emgrand Group, with a market value of 100 billion, was wholly owned by the Wade family until yesterday. Now, all the shares are in your name. You can go there tomorrow to complete the handover. Charlie found it hard to believe. The Wade family's generosity was overwhelming. 10 billion in cash, plus the $100 billion Emgrand Group. Although Orris Hill was full of hidden talents and influential people, the true giant was the Emgrand Group. Every family had to bow before it. It was the emperor of Orris Hill's business world. Even the Willson family and the White family, who had humiliated him today, as well as the Jones family who pursued Claire, were insignificant compared to the Emgrand Group. And now it belonged to him. At that moment, Stephen Thompson handed him a business card and said, "Mr. Wade, you may need some time to calm down and think. I won't disturb you any longer. This is my number. Please call me if you need anything." After speaking, Stephen Thompson turned and left. Even after he was gone, Charlie remained in a daze. He didn't know whether he should accept the Wade family's compensation. But after thinking carefully about the humiliation he had suffered over the past 10 years, and especially the insults he had endured within the Willson family, he realized this was the compensation owed to him by the Wade family. Why shouldn't he take it? Besides, Aunt Lena's medical expenses still required 2 million, and it was urgently needed. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and immediately turned back toward the payment office. "Hello, I'd like to deposit 2 million. He swiped the card, entered the password, and the transaction was completed successfully. 2 million was instantly transferred into the hospital's account. Charlie felt as though he were walking in a dream. Had he really become a billionaire? He returned home in a daze. The family was in turmoil. Claire and her parents did not live in the Willson villa, but in a very ordinary apartment building. They had been driven out after Claire married him and old Mr. Willson passed away. His mother-in-law was shouting angrily, "That useless Charlie made us lose face today. If you don't divorce him, your grandmother will drive you out of the Willson group." Claire replied calmly, "Then I'll just find another job." "You," her mother said furiously. "What is so good about that loser? Why can't you divorce him and marry Wendell instead? If you marry Wendell, our family could finally hold our heads high." Her father also added, "Exactly. If you marry Wendell, our family would become precious in your grandmother's eyes, and she would curry favor with you every day." Claire said firmly, "Enough. I'm not divorcing Charlie." The two of them were still trying to persuade her when Charlie pushed open the door and entered. When they saw him, neither his father-in-law nor his mother-in-law looked pleased. His mother-in-law snorted coldly, so the trash finally came back. Charlie sighed inwardly. She had always looked down on him, but if she knew that he now owned the Emgrand Group and had 10 billion in cash, how would she react? Still, Charlie had no intention of revealing his identity yet. He had been away from the Wade family for many years, and who knew what kind of enemies might still exist within it. If someone there wished him harm, exposing himself now would be dangerous. It was better to keep a low profile for the time being. So he lowered his head and said apologetically, "Mom, I'm sorry. I caused trouble for everyone today." More than trouble, she snapped. You're ruining this family of three. Can't you have a little self-awareness and get out of our house? Claire quickly interrupted. Mom, how can you say that? Charlie is your son-in-law. Bullshit, her mother cursed bitterly. I don't have such a worthless son-in-law. The farther he goes, the better. Claire gently pushed Charlie. Go to the room first. Charlie nodded gratefully and hurried back to the bedroom. He and Claire had been married for 3 years, but in the strictest sense, they had never truly lived as husband and wife. Claire slept on the bed, while he slept on the floor beside it. That night, Charlie could not sleep for a long time. Everything that had happened that day was too shocking for him to process. Before going to sleep, Claire said softly, How is Aunt Lena? I still have more than 100,000 in savings. You can take it to her tomorrow. Charlie replied, No need. Someone has already paid for her treatment and sent her to Eastcliff. Really? Claire asked in surprise. Then Aunt Lena is saved. Yes, Charlie said. She spent her whole life doing good deeds and helping others. Now someone has finally repaid her kindness. That's wonderful, Claire nodded. You must feel relieved. Yes. Claire yawned. I need to sleep. The company has been very busy lately and I'm exhausted. Charlie asked, What happened at the company? The business hasn't been doing well, she said. Grandma has always wanted to cooperate with a large corporation like the Grand Group, but the Willson family is too weak. They won't even consider us. Charlie immediately thought of the Grand Group and asked, The Willson family has no cooperation with them at all. Claire laughed softly. How could they? The Grand Group would never notice the Willson family. Even Wendy's fiancé and Gerald's family can barely compare. Grandma is hoping that after they marry, the White family will help us connect with the Grand Group. Charlie nodded. So the Willson family had been desperately trying to build ties with the Grand Group. But Mrs. Willson would never imagine that the company she dreamed of partnering with now belonged to him. Thinking of this, Charlie made a decision. He would first take control of the Grand Group and then quietly help Claire through it. She had suffered too much bullying in the Willson family. As her husband, it was his responsibility to help her rise in status and reclaim her dignity. From today onward, everything would be different. He would never allow anyone to look down on her again. He would make the entire Willson family bow before her. Early the next morning, after finishing breakfast, Charlie rode his small e-bike to the headquarters of the Grand Group. He parked beside the company lot and had just locked the bike when a black Bentley glided smoothly into the space across from him. Charlie glanced up absent-mindedly and saw a young man and woman step out of the luxury car. The man wore an expensive tailored suit and carried himself with practiced confidence. The woman, though dressed somewhat flamboyantly, was undeniably beautiful, with an air of playful charm. To Charlie's surprise, they were none other than Claire's cousin Wendy and her soon-to-be fiancé, Gerald White, the eldest son of the White family. Charlie had no idea why they were visiting the Grand Group, but wanting to avoid unnecessary trouble, he turned to leave quietly. Unfortunately, trouble had already found him. Wendy's sharp eyes spotted him at once. "Oh, brother-in-law," she called out loudly, her voice dripping with false warmth. Charlie grimaced inwardly and quickened his pace, but courtesy forced him to stop when the pair approached. He gave a faint smile. "Wendy, what brings you here?" Wendy giggled smugly. "Gerald and I are here to meet Doris Young, the vice-chairwoman of Grand Group." She turned toward Gerald, with admiration shining in her eyes. "The White family has many business dealings with Grand Group. Once we're married, it won't only benefit the Whites, it'll help the Willson family too." Charlie said nothing. Since Grand Group had only recently become part of the Wade family's holdings, he had not yet reviewed all its partnerships. Still, he kept his expression calm. He smiled lightly. "Young Master White is clearly talented and capable. You two make quite a pair." Gerald glanced at Charlie with open contempt. Yesterday, this useless live-in son-in-law had been scolded like a dog by old Mrs. Willson. Yet today, he stood here smiling as though nothing had happened. Gerald couldn't understand how a woman as stunning as Claire could have married such a pathetic man. If not for Charlie, Gerald would have pursued Claire relentlessly. How had he ended up engaged instead to Wendy, who was inferior to Claire in every way? The thought soured his mood instantly. "So, brother-in-law," Gerald said mockingly, "what are you doing at Grand Group?" Charlie answered casually, "Looking for a job." "A job," Gerald sneered. "You." Charlie frowned. "And why is that your concern?" Before Gerald could continue, Wendy stepped in eagerly, delighted by the chance to humiliate Charlie. "Is Gerald wrong?" she said coldly. "Do you even have a diploma? Any work experience? Any achievements besides being a burden? If you're here to apply as a security guard, they still wouldn't want trash like you. If you had any self-awareness, you'd be out on the street collecting bottles. At least you could make 2,000 or 3,000 a month." As she spoke, she tossed the empty drink bottle in her hand at Charlie's feet. "There," she said with a sneer, "don't say I never helped you. Pick it up and sell it." Gerald laughed. "Since you're family, I suppose I should take care of you too. I happen to know the vice chairwoman well. Why do I ask her to arrange something suitable for you?" He paused dramatically, then smirked. "Perhaps cleaning toilets." Charlie's eyes turned cold. "The kind of work I'm looking for is none of your business," he said calmly. "You should worry about yourselves instead. Grand Group is a prestigious company. I doubt they would partner with low-quality trash." Gerald's face darkened instantly. "Who are you calling trash?" he barked. Charlie looked at him with open disdain. "You." Without another word, Charlie turned and walked toward the building entrance. "Damn it, stop right there," Gerald shouted, hurrying after him. He caught up with Charlie near the elevators, itching to teach him a lesson, at the very least slap him twice and make him understand the consequences of disrespect. But this was Grand Group's headquarters. Causing trouble here might offend his business partners, so he restrained himself. Grinding his teeth, he hissed, "I'll let you off today, but next time you won't be so lucky." Charlie snorted and stepped into the elevator. "Gerald," he said coolly, "you think you're powerful. Very soon you'll learn the price of arrogance." "Go to hell," Gerald roared, moving to follow him. But Wendy grabbed his arm and pulled him back. "Gerald, don't ride the same elevator as garbage like him," she said disdainfully. "The smell might rub off on you." Gerald glared at Charlie as the elevator doors slid shut. "I'll deal with you next time," he shouted. Charlie ignored him completely. The elevator rose straight to the top floor, where the chairman's office was located. Stephen Thompson had already arranged everything for Charlie's arrival. The person assigned to receive him was Doris Young. Doris was famous throughout Orus Hill. She was known as the city's most accomplished businesswoman, beautiful, intelligent, and exceptionally capable. At a young age, she had already risen to the position of vice chairwoman and played a major role in Grand Group's success. Now that the Wade family had acquired the company, the former chairman had stepped down, while Doris remained to assist the new owner. When she saw Charlie enter, Doris froze in surprise. She had never expected the mysterious new chairman to be so young and so handsome. Recovering herself at once, she bowed respectfully. "Mr. Wade," she said, "please come to my office."